Hello and welcome to Motherhood Equipped. We are so excited. Today I'm joined by Kaya, co-founder of Beeya Wellness, whose work is transforming women's hormone health through simple food-based solutions. I am such a fan, but we'll get into that later. She's a mom. She's an entrepreneur. She's an advocate for helping women feel informed and equipped in every season. She has just a very impressive resume, and I am so excited to have you on today, Kaya. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here, and it's been so great getting to know you over this past year.
It's been such a gift for me, probably most of all, because I feel like you're steps ahead of me in multiple categories. So you're somebody I look to as a mentor in a lot of different ways. But yeah, really excited to dive in. I want to ask you first, right off the bat, can you just introduce us to Beeya Wellness, your mission, your products, a little bit of the founding story?
Yes, absolutely. So, Beeya Wellness is a brand that is exclusively for women, and we target women's hormonal disarray, is what I say, but we try to do it in a very fun and approachable way. I don't know if you've noticed, but the conversation around hormones lately has been people have a lot of misconception. They think we're talking about hormone replacement therapy when we say that we're a company that is rooted in women's hormonal health, or they think we're talking about menopause specifically. But hormones are just flowing through us every single day. And when they're out of whack, they can cause so many wild symptoms. So at Bia, we take a lifestyle and food based approach to hormonal healing, I guess you can say. And I can tell you a little bit about where the idea came from if you want to get into that. But that's
Totally.
essentially what our company does. We want to make the conversation fun, we want to make it approachable, and we want to make it doable for women who maybe not even are in the wellness world, but they don't feel great and they want to feel great.
Hmm. That's so, so good. And then can you tell me a little bit more about your role because I know that you and Yasmin sort of like are a yin and yang in your partnership together, but what is more your role specifically?
Yeah, so my co-founder is Yasmin, as you just mentioned her name, and she is my sister-in-law, and we are absolutely yin and yang. So she is very business-minded. She's the person behind the operations, and then I am the person who has the nutrition background, and I went to film school, so I'm more the creative, I'm the product development side. So we have a very unique set of skills, and then when we combine them, it kind of creates magic, which is really nice.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I'm really excited to actually I told you before we hopped on, but like literally this came in the mail this
I
morning.
love that.
Love honestly all of it. The seeds, the magnesium. I'm gonna link to everything in the show notes because I think that you guys just make such a great product and you do make it approachable. You add the education piece and you keep it fun with like really fun recipes. And it's such a blessing to have something that makes something otherwise pretty like overwhelming hormones and like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And it's such a big topic and there are so many symptoms, but you make it so attainable to just go one tiny little routine at a time. And before you know it, those symptoms are just like slowly disappearing and you're starting to feel like yourself again. And it's such a gift. I'd love to know, like, when did you first feel, was there a moment when you first felt this like tug towards helping women with their hormones and their cycles? And like, when you realized, okay, there's a gap that we can fill with this company?
Absolutely. So I come from a South Asian background, and there is something called PCOS, which I know you're familiar with, which a lot of women of color specifically, and also South Asian women struggle with. I mean, I can't tell you how many women who are Indian who are in my community have told me that they have PCOS, that they've been diagnosed with PCOS, or they have irregular periods. They don't know when their period's coming. They have painful periods. And it just kept popping up over and over and over again. And I was in my master's for nutrition. And I remember there was a guest lecturer. The course was taught by a man. He brought in a woman to talk about women's hormones. And she was talking specifically about seed cycling, which is the product that you just showed and that you are currently taking and that we sell. And she said that in her clinical experience, that when women who are struggling with irregular, painful periods, a lot of symptoms of hormonal balance, specifically related to their menstrual cycle, embark on seed cycling and they're consistent with it for about 3 months to 6 months, she's seen that 90% of those cases can be solved essentially.
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty incredible. And if she's telling the truth, that could be game changing. And how many women do I know in my community who are struggling with that exact same thing? And I think because I kept hearing about this over and over, and in my mind, I'm like, it's not okay to not know when your period is coming at such a young age. I mean, most of the women that I knew at that time were in their 20s or early 30s, right? You
Right.
should know when your period's arriving. You should not be so debilitating in debilitating pain that you're on the couch for days at a time or have to take 8 Advil every single time your period comes. I mean, it was just such a common thing that I kept hearing over and over that I was like, I have to solve this problem from my community.
Right. Wow, that's so beautiful. For anybody listening who has literally never heard the phrase seed cycling before, what's a quick definition to catch them up?
Yeah, so seed cycling is a food as medicine approach. Essentially, you are rotating four specific seeds throughout the month or throughout your menstrual cycle: flax and pumpkin in the first half of your cycle. So that's the follicular and menstrual phase. And then sesame and sunflower in your luteal phase. And so in your ovulation, which is about really, it's only an event, but from about day 14 to day 28. And the nutrients in those seeds, like fats and lignans and antioxidants and minerals and vitamins, support estrogen and progesterone. And when you have imbalances in those two sex hormones for women, it can show up as so many different things. It can be really bad, painful periods, bloating, fatigue, low libido, anovulatory cycles, whatever it is. And so we are just trying to provide women with nutrients to support the production, balance, elimination, and metabolism of those hormones.
Mhm. I should actually just interject with a little bit more in depth of a testimony before I move on with some more questions for you because I I'm sure some people listening when my sweet friend Leah first told me about seed cycling, this was years ago, years and years ago. I just thought that was the craziest thing that I had ever heard. I was like, "You're telling me that I'm gonna eat some seeds and XYZ symptoms are gonna go away." But I trusted her, and I'm so grateful I did because at the time, I had what you mentioned, anovulatory periods. So I had a cycle, but not really because I wasn't ovulating. And now I have 2 beautiful children, and I'm so grateful that I had such a simple solution. And within a few months, I was on track seamlessly on track. Always knew when things were coming. Like, no pain, no cramps, just so many things went away after that, and I was shocked.
Wow.
And to this day, when I tell other people about seed cycling, at first I get kind of a funny look, but it really is so helpful in so many different ways. And don't worry, if this is like your first time, they do each box comes with like a little insert that tells you exactly what to do. And their Instagram is just like full of education, but I am really grateful. So I guess as far as like what if you're talking um to a mom, what are some things that maybe a mom doesn't realize about her hormones that change? I don't know, like what am I trying to ask? Like, what
Well,
are
it's so
some
funny that
things?
you mentioned that actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Exactly what I think you're about to say, especially postpartum. I mean, if we want
Yeah.
to talk about that.
Well, because everything is just wacko. Everything changes.
Everything changes, everything is wackadoodle. It was really funny because we had our seconds around the same time, and last year when I had my second child, I remember feeling all these things while simultaneously my sister's going through perimenopause, and we were basically talking about the same things, and I thought to myself, I think postpartum is like a mini perimenopause situation. I mean, the brain fog, the anxiousness, not being able to sleep, the fatigue, there would be times where I'm just forgetting my words. I'm like, what is going on with me? And my sister was going through the exact same thing. Hers is obviously different because she's at a different stage of her life, but so many things happen, right? We have all of the surge of hormones when we're pregnant, right? To support our developing baby. And then afterwards, probably within about 3 days, we just get like a drop of these hormones. And our hormones, they get a bad rep, but they're actually so wonderful. And things like estrogen, right? That gives women their glow. It makes them feel like playful and extroverted and these types of things. So, these hormones are not bad. They're good. It's just that when there's really big dips or there's imbalances there that we can start to feel all of these things. And then talk about, women who are breastfeeding. When you stop breastfeeding, that's another hormonal shift right there that occurs. So I don't think we give ourselves enough grace as moms for what happens to us. And then we're also expected to now take care of this brand new baby. And if you have another baby, you have to take care of that baby too. It's wild. And the first time I didn't notice the shift that much I think I was younger, and it's also the first baby, and then, 2 years later, you get pregnant again, you're still maybe recovering from the first one, then you have to go through the second one, and you're extra tired, right? So, there are so many things that happen to women at that stage, and, I feel for them, and I'm still kind of going through it. I don't know about you, but, yeah, I would love to hear about that.
Definitely going through it, but I think, like, even just understanding what you just said, um, I think it really kinda takes the pressure off and allows you to progress in a more productive way when you understand what's happening. Because instead of like, "Oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I anxious?" You're able to kinda point the finger at your hormones and kinda take that shame piece off, and then look at it as more of a problem we can solve as opposed to like a, "What's wrong with me? Like, I'm not keeping up with everybody on social media, looks like they're thriving and they have a 2-day-old baby, and like, what am I doing wrong?" It's actually like, "No, hormones are something everybody deals with. How can I approach mine uniquely, and what can I do to support them?" Actually, that's another question I'd love to ask you. What are like some, if you're talking to your across a coffee shop table from a new mom. She's overwhelmed. She is undernourished and depleted because she's just had a pregnancy, growing a baby. Now she's nursing and growing a baby. What are some small shifts you might recommend she make to do just that, to support her hormones?
I think you and I talked about this, I think, on the phone a while back, where that postpartum period, it feels like you're not keeping up with everyone else. You wanna grow your business, you wanna do all these things, but it's actually such a short period of time. Unfortunately, not a lot of women are afforded the luxury of rest. A lot of women have to get right back to work, and, that is a different situation, and you kind of just have to do what you can. But in the case where you are able to take a little bit of a period of rest, it is 100% okay to take that rest and take it from somebody who just was like, "I'm gonna jump right back into things." Your body will pay the price. I mean, this time, I didn't take a maternity leave. I really wanted to jump back into my business. I was growing another business, and I just put a lot of pressure on myself. And then what ends up happening is that your body starts to show signs of struggling, and you just feel extra tired. And so it's like if you allow yourself just that period of resting as much as you can, even if you have to wake up throughout the night because you're still feeding your baby, just don't put that pressure on yourself to keep up with everyone else just for a little bit. And a year goes by so fast. 2 years goes by so fast. And before you know it, you're going to be able to do all of the things that you wanted to do again. So, first and foremost, I know sleep is very elusive at this point, but try your best to get as much rest as you can. And then really, really take the time to, I would say, like, make yourself food. And, I didn't do a great job of that in the beginning. I was eating a lot of like, hey, just order Postmates or this or that. But if I really just sat down and said, hey, I need to feed myself first and then make food for the family, I think it would have been a lot better. So just do what you can. Rest is probably the most important thing. And I know movement is tricky in the very beginning whenever you're cleared, even if it's just walks, long walks, put your baby in the stroller and go for a nice long walk. Just be slow and gentle with yourself, is what I would say.
I think that's really good advice because I definitely can relate to that. I remember actually really distinctly being pretty upset on the first birthday of my oldest, Russell, because I was like, why am I still like, how come a whole year has gone by in the blink of an eye? So slow when you're in it and you're rocking and you're feeding and you're changing. But then you're at your first birthday and you're like, wait a second, that flew by. And I just remember being on his birthday and just thinking to myself, man, I thought that I would be further along by now. I thought that I would feel more, replenished. And it's just because I put so much pressure on myself to basically, I think there's like this misunderstanding, especially when you become a mom for the first time. It's sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to continue life as it was and just add a baby on my hip. I'm
Mhm.
going to continue producing the same amount. I'm going to be just as productive, just as on time, just as efficient, do all the same things in a day, just with a baby.
Yeah.
And it's like absolutely not the case. I've had to slowly learn that actually if you do get, it's like icing on the cake if you get a couple things done. And that's okay. Because also, I mean, I don't know about you, but I cannot tell you how many times I have been interacting with anybody older in my life, even at the grocery store. Sweet elderly people will come up to me and they will say, "This time is so fleeting." And I take that very seriously because
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? They've lived more life than me. And if they are telling me that these days that feel so long that are actually really fleeting, I should probably take their word for it. And I think just trusting that and taking the pressure off, but it is really hard.
It's so
Definitely really hard.
hard. It's so hard. It's so funny that you say my mother-in-law always says that to me when she sees me. She's like, "These were my favorite times." You when you're in it, it feels like a lot, but now that I'm, speaking as her, now that I'm 60 something, I look back and I'm like, that was the best time of my life when the kids were little and they were in the home and we were doing
Yeah,
everything together. And if you really, really think about it as a mom, what is the most important thing to you? You're probably going to say your children. And so I think that one of the most profound things that we can do as mothers is raise kind, compassionate children who feel loved and nourished. And you have to remember that that is your priority first and foremost, right? Above everything else. The business, all of that stuff can wait if it can. That's, put your kids first because it'll really pay off in the long run.
totally. Yeah, that priority check I think is really important. What about if you were, again, just like across a coffee shop table chatting with a mom in your season? So, like a mom of more than one toddler, baby, different seasons, and really like in like a very fast paced motherhood, I would say. What are some small shifts you would suggest to her to sort of get a little bit of that energy back, that oomph back? Like for somebody who hasn't taken really any steps intentionally to fueling her body?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. And I know that we live in a very over caffeinated world. And I would say that, you know, even though I do enjoy my coffee and all those things, there's so much else that we can do to get our energy back. I would say the most important thing for energy is probably movement. Once you're in a place where your body feels good enough to be able to handle that, however long that takes for you, it's a completely individual thing. But let's say you're in my situation where you're 15 months out postpartum and you have an older kid. However you can move your body, I mean, that's how you're gonna get your energy. But mitochondria, all that responds to movement. The second thing that's gonna support your energy levels is blood sugar balance. And that I know everybody's probably really tired of hearing it, but it's just so true that if you have these wild spikes and dips in your blood sugar, that is going to cause you to feel fatigued throughout the day. So however you can support just steady energy, that for me means eating 3 meals a day that have protein, fat, and fiber, not snacking in between on quick sources of carbohydrate. And we know that the more things that we have that are satiating, protein and fat being them, the better that we feel throughout the day. And then I
Hmm.
have little tricks. So at 3 p.m., if I feel really exhausted, between like right after lunch to 3 o'clock is my time where I'm just like, oh, I'm done. Or like that would be normally when somebody reaches for sugar or reaches for their second coffee. I'll do something like, that sounds really silly, but I'll fill up a bowl with ice water and I'll stick my face in it. And that is like a nice way to just wake up. It's also really good for anxiety. So if there's anybody who's experiencing a lot of anxiety in the moment, sticking your head or your face safely, I should add. If you can't do it safely, please don't do it into a bowl of ice water is a really nice way to calm down. Or I like to rebound, so I'll jump up and down on my
Hmm.
trampoline, go for a really long walk and listen to something very inspiring like a good podcast or affirmations is also really nice, or calling up a friend, right? Call up a fellow mom and vent or talk or, you
Yeah.
know, shoot around ideas, whatever it is. That is very energizing for me. So find the things that are super energizing for you, but movement and nutrition are gonna play such a big role, and then obviously sleep, but I hate to harp on sleep too much for moms because I just know that there's not much that they can do about it in certain situations. So do what you can. If you are still somebody who's waking up throughout the night to feed your kid or your kids are going through sleep regressions, that's okay. Don't stress about it too much. Focus on the other things, right? Focus on the movement, focus on the nutrition.
Oh, yeah. No, that's so good. I feel like it's the like that approach to me, what first popped into my mind was like that's kind of a delayed gratification approach, but it's so much better because if you do reach for the, quick source of sugar or the extra caffeine in the afternoon, most of the time I don't think you're actually going to feel that much better. Like you're just going to have another high to have another crash. And then you're going to be at dinner time just like, frustrated and like stressed out and then you're I don't know, going to be impatient with your kids and feel bad about it later. It's just like setting you down up for this downward spiral.
Yes.
Whereas if you can just pause for 2 seconds and say, okay, what else can I do? I loved those suggestions because I've definitely been in that where I'm like, okay, it's the afternoon. I'm a little tired. Don't want more caffeine. Don't want, this or whatever. And you go for like a 2 second walk. You just get outside, you whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. I just got my second wind. I'm ready to go.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
amazing the diversity of sourcing our body can be open to for energy.
Percent. Yeah, I remember my old boss, he had a really, really, really good tip. This was specifically for people who are reaching for things like snacks or if you struggle with sugar addiction or anything like that. He had his patients put on their fridge the words, "What am I feeling and what do I need?" So, this could also apply for women who are struggling with energy or whatever it is. If you're having a moment where you're feeling anxious or you're feeling tired or you're feeling angry, and it's like, identify what you're feeling and then think about what you need. Chances are you don't need a bag of cookies in that moment. You might need a hug from a loved one. You might need some fresh air and sunlight and nature. You might need some water because you're dehydrated. I mean, think of how many times people just need to drink water and they're not drinking enough water. So I think really sitting down and identifying what you're feeling and what you actually need in the moment can be so powerful.
Yeah, that's really good. That is really good. Definitely very applicable tips. See, like all of this is so simple. I think that's
So
what's so
simple.
beautiful because when I very, very first started focusing on my hormones, I kind of procrastinated it for a while because just the word is overwhelming. But then I started and I was like, oh, these things are all like, most of them are free, most of them are attainable, even for a busy mom. That's so good. I guess I want to shift a little bit more to your experience and I want to ask you, well, actually, kind of in between wellness and mom. I think you're really good at helping women advocate for themselves and giving them the steps and saying, okay, here's, this is the information so that they can advocate for themselves, like what you just said in postpartum wellness and things like that, and to know what to ask for. Cause I think that's a lot of times what keeps them from asking is they just don't know what to ask. So, we already talked about how, yes, a lot of women do have to quickly rush back into fast paced work postpartum. But I think a lot of women might not have to, but they do feel dismissed or rushed in conventional care. It's like, okay, 6 weeks done. Like, you're good, you're done. What are some things that you would say to a mom to help her become a better advocate for her own health when she is maybe talking to her provider, talking to her family, maybe talking to a spouse, like knowing what to ask for? What would you suggest?
Yeah. I've been really fortunate, especially here in California, to work with conventional OBGYNs who are not dismissive of what I feel. So I would say always look for the right practitioners are out there. And chances are you can find somebody who takes your insurance. And I think just telling them, being honest with them, saying, this is what I feel. Or if you're someone who has collected a lot of data, you've seen things like bring it. There was a story that I once heard of, I think it was an oncologist who was working with a patient who he was a conventional oncologist, and that patient brought to him a ton of literature about the effects of a green tea extract on cancer cells or something like that. And he sat down and he took the time to read it because he didn't know. And then he kind of opened up his world to this whole other possibility when it came to treating cancer. The story is something like that. I'm not saying it perfectly, but
Very
I
cool.
will say, the right kind and compassionate doctor, they might not know what they haven't been taught in school. They're probably just trying to do their best. And so if you are working with someone you don't jive with, definitely switch. Find the right practitioner for you, somebody who's open to hearing about what you're going through. And you can always ask for specific tests. Like ask them, "Hey, I'm a year postpartum or I'm, a few months postpartum and I want to know where I'm at. What do my hormones look like? What is my nutrient status?" And they'll tell you what they can and cannot order. And I also heard a really great tip from Dr. Anjali D'Souza, who I love. And if you haven't heard of her, you should definitely follow her. She's a medical doctor and she's also in functional medicine. And she said, sometimes it's worth it to bring somebody who will advocate for you if you can't find your own voice. So if you are a postpartum mother who is struggling and your partner is a good advocate for you, or your best friend, or your mother, whoever it is, bring them with you to the appointment and they can say, "Hey, remember you wanted to ask about this. You were
Mm,
feeling this. Like, here's the notes that we took." Sometimes you feel more empowered when you have somebody you love with you. So that could be
that's good.
another good way to kind of advocate for yourself in the moment is to have a partner. And then there are so many other companies now, like the world of wellness and health is exploding, especially when it comes to testing and us being able to have access to our own testing, right? Like I'm not even remembering the names right now, but we can link about it in the show notes. There's so many companies
Mhm.
you can go directly to and then you get the testing, you get access to the results. And the good news is for I would say about maybe 80 to 90% of what people are feeling, lifestyle based solutions will make a difference, right? There are some
Mhm.
conditions or things like if a woman is struggling with endometriosis or something that requires deeper attention that you absolutely need, a professional to intervene. That is 100% there. And I always recommend digging deeper if you suspect something deeper is going on. But for some of the more like daily chronic issues that people are struggling with, you making these few really simple lifestyle shifts can have a huge impact on your body. And so it's not about just what happens in the doctor's office, it's about what happens every single day and the habits that you implement every single day. So just remember that you have so much more power than you think.
Yeah. I really love the idea of bringing somebody with you to an appointment. Because even if it's, I mean, I know for me, sometimes I just feel distracted because you're there with a baby. Maybe it's your first time and they're crying. And like as a mom, that's like nails on a chalkboard. And you're like, I can't think. A lot of times I also, actually, almost every appointment I go to, I bring a piece of paper with my notes written out because I know, it's, you probably, you feel awkward. You don't want to be on your phone or whatever. So a lot of times I will put it on a piece of paper, my questions that I wanted to ask so that I'm not distracted. And I'll just look at the doctor and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to forget these. I'm just going to read this. But it also kind of gives you the courage to maybe ask the hard one that you're not feeling like you can ask about, like, okay, well, this is how I'm actually feeling. Really love that. So now I do want to kind of get into more this toggle you have between motherhood and a really beautiful career and a lot of different things you're passionate about that I think you weave really beautifully, it seems like, into life as a busy mom. And I want to start with ambition because you talked about, at first kind of putting that pressure on yourself to race back into things. And I feel like ambition looks really different after having children. Not less, not more, just different. And I'd love to ask you how you have learned to pursue big goals without sacrificing what matters most at home.
Such a good question and something that I'm still really working on. I will say the most beautiful gift that motherhood has given me, especially when it comes to my career, is that now really nothing else matters other than the health and safety and happiness of my family. So at the end of the day, if those things are checked off, then it's successful. I remember I used to get stage fright for public speaking, or I used to feel nervous about meeting new people or networking or whatever it was. I'm still not perfect about those things, but I feel so much more myself after being a mom. And I know that that's not the case for everybody. So I don't mean to take away from anyone's individual experience. Like, that's not always going to happen. But for me, I just felt so much more comfortable in my skin that the career stuff almost felt easier in a way after becoming a mom because I just didn't feel I felt more brave, I felt more courageous, I felt more able to put myself out there because I was like, none of this work stuff actually matters. I mean, it's fun and I love doing it and I want to support my family in every way that I can and I want to build these big empires and those are like fun goals that I have, but it's just not the most important thing at the end of the day. And I feel like taking that
Mhm.
pressure off of my career in a way has been so magical. It's like what they say in manifestation, where it's like if you hold on to it too tightly, it won't happen. But if you know that you want it and you release it and you let it go, a Reverend Michael Beckwith always talks about this from Agape, and he's amazing. It's like that's when the manifestation comes, right? Like that's when God or the universe is responding to you when you're not holding on to it too tightly. And I really feel like motherhood has given me that gift. As far as balancing it, I'm in a really fortunate place now where I have good childcare for my kids and something that I feel really good about, but I still struggle so much with the guilt of feel this inner thing of like I should be with my kids all day. And then I feel, when I'm with my kids, I should be working. I should be trying to build my business. That does not go away. It's just, I ask my husband all the time. I'm like, "Do you feel this?" And he's like, "No." And it's just different, right? It's always going to be different for us moms. But I have talked to my sister whose kids are older, and she said it gets way better. You know, they get a little bit more independence. They start to do their own things. They want to hang out with their friends. They're doing, they're loving school or activities, and it just completely changes. And you feel like you have a whole new life that you're like, what do I do with this? So I feel like when they're really little, it's such a challenge, and I'm still navigating it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I do want to ask a little bit more deeper into that question. It sounds like you have really been able to find a strong identity as a mom because I think before somebody has that, it can be really hard to view your mom hat as like, okay, this is success because maybe not everybody thinks this way. And it's wrong because motherhood is critical. But I do feel like the overwhelming message in society is putting more praise and glory towards the work, the tangible things, the career achievements, moving up that ladder. And then I cannot, I mean, just like, you're just a mom. And I'm like, not just, let's remove that from the sentence. But it sounds like you've gotten to a place of being really just like comfortable in your own skin as, viewing the importance of that work and being okay with that. Like, and maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's important. I know it took me a really long time to get to that point where I was like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. In my heart, I knew that taking care of your children, like, it's irreplaceable. It is critical. It's like infinite in value, but then being able to tell that to the rest of the world that maybe doesn't see it that clearly and say, okay, this is my priority. I don't know where I'm going with this, but do you have any advice for somebody who's still walking that journey of getting comfortable in her own skin, seeing the value in her work as a mom so that she can get to the place where you are, so that she can get to the place of saying, okay, my children are taken care of. That is a win. I've done my job here. I feel really satisfied with that. And then I'm going to pursue the other things, but without the stress of feeling like I'm losing in both categories.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so much to say about this. And honestly, for anybody who says something like that to a mom, first of all, for anybody who says anything to you, advice or whatever it is, look at their life and say, do I admire this person? Am I inspired by this person? Would I swap places with this person because I think their life is incredible? If the answer is no, don't listen to anything that they say because more often than not, we can get caught up in what other people say. And I do all the time. And I have to remind myself this person is not living the life that I want to live. They have no
Mm,
clue my dreams, my goals, my aspirations. And also, no one can speak to that experience unless they've been through it. And the reason I'm so confident in this is because I've been in maternity leave a full-time mom. I've been a full-time business owner. I've been somebody who is very career-oriented, determined, wants to grow my businesses, wants to build multiple businesses at the same time. There is nothing harder than being a mom. There is nothing harder than that. It is the hardest job ever. It is exhausting, it is tiring, you're often very isolated. It's a lot. And I feel like I can just say that, obviously there are some very, very challenging jobs out there that I do not mean to discredit. I'm only speaking to my personal experience of what I can compare, being a business owner versus being a mom.
mhm.
And I just think that people to say, "Oh, you're just a mom," or "When are you gonna go back to work?" It's like they have no clue. And sometimes people just say, I won't curse, but people just say stuff just to say it. They don't know what else to say. And it's
Yes, that's
hard
true.
not to take it to heart, but I try to, my husband is really good at this. He does not take what people say to heart. It's a little bit more challenging for me, but I just know because I've been through both of being at home with the kids and then being well at the with my daughter when I was on maternity leave. I didn't do that with my son, but I've been at home, and then I've been working and I just know which one is harder and which one is challenging and which one is more rewarding genuinely. And so I just take it from somebody who's gone through both of those experiences and like, please do not take any of those things to heart because people just don't know what they're talking about genuinely.
Yeah, that is such good advice. It does really take, I do feel like as an individual, you have to initiate that within yourself, though, to say, I know what I'm doing. I know my priorities, my goals, my aspirations, and I'm going to stay true to myself. And in a way, motherhood, that is really a gift because it kind of forces you on that journey if you haven't gotten there yet. I personally had so much growing to do. I mean, yeah, to add that, I know you already said it, Kaya, but they're really like the journey in that regard of getting to your identity as a mom. Like, that is so individual. It's faster for some, it's slower for others. I would say mine was pretty slow, and sometimes I would beat myself up for it, but I'm so grateful that I went on my journey at my pace, because then you get to the end result and it's just like freedom to, like you said, also, just like you at this point in your journey, you don't have some of the same anxieties that you did before. You feel really comfortable in your skin and who you are and what you're doing and where you're going. And I think that is a goal worth striving for. But it does take that first step of saying, okay, I'm going to choose to work on this, and I'm going to choose to believe something that might be against the grain of, like, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing. There are a lot of resources out there too. I mean, a lot of great podcasts that pour into that, like this conversation right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And truthfully, I do believe there's no sense of worth that can how do I say this? Let me start over. There's no greater gift that you can give to the world than raising a human being who is kind and compassionate and could potentially even change the world themselves, right? Like
Hmm.
everything that we pour into our kids is going to be return tenfold if they grow up
Hmm.
to be just amazing human beings who are kind to others. They can change somebody's life. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy how little credit moms get because, I mean, we're doing some of the most profound work in the world.
Yep, totally. I had a mentor once tell me, she said, you know, Brigida, you might not change the world, but you can influence somebody who can. And what better influence than having children around you 24/7? Like, I don't think it gets any more
Absolutely.
influential than that. I mean,
Yeah,
especially when they get into the toddler years, they are saying everything you say, doing everything you do. It's definitely humbling, but that is influence at its finest.
absolutely.
And I mean, what an honor to think about that. Getting back into, let's see, for like, I guess, so getting back into a little bit about the balance, though, that you do still, walk this line between entrepreneurship or career for somebody else, maybe with motherhood. What are some tips or some lessons that you've learned to help you balance those two in a way that still protects your health so you don't burn out in your family rhythms? What are some things that you've learned that you can pass along?
Yeah, so I don't really work after the kids are picked up. I don't even have an opportunity. They're just running around like crazy people. So I can't really do anything, but it's actually very nice because I get to shut my brain off from work. Or if I do get a chance before bed, I kind of see it as a luxury if I can check back in. So just setting those boundaries, right, with technology and when I'm on my computer and off my computer has been really nice. I would also say that when it comes to my business, I don't get caught up in things that don't matter. And so, the biggest goals for Bia are have fun and make an impact. And I always try to go back to that. Am I having fun? Am I making an impact? Am I being helpful? If I'm getting caught up in something that is not tied back to those things, like, oh, this design isn't perfect, or oh, this isn't worded exactly the way that I want it to, that stuff does not matter at the end of the day, and I think that it's just some people are perfectionists. I don't identify as a perfectionist. If you are a perfectionist, that is a whole other battle that I don't have tips for. But, I genuinely think actually that perfectionism comes from fear, and that's a different conversation. It's just like fear of being seen, fear of putting out the work, fear of who will I have to be if I start to put out my work into the world. It's a whole other
Mhm.
conversation for sure. But just don't get caught up in things that don't matter, whether it be with your kids or whether it be with your business, because we can just throw ourselves into a mental loop of stress and fear and all of that. And it's like, focus on the things that will actually move the needle forward and you'll feel so much lighter.
That's so good. That is so, so good. Well, Kay, like, this has been such a blessing. Do you have any other sort of parting words of wisdom or encouragement that you would give to a mom in any season? Although you've already given us a lot.
Gosh, I have a lot to say about growing a business. So if anybody ever has any questions about that, I am so happy to answer them. When it comes to motherhood, I am still learning. I am still learning a lot. I still get frustrated. I'm also the type that will read every book on parenting and then make all my notes and do all my research and implement all these things and see what works and what doesn't. But joy is something that I always return to when it comes to myself and my kids. And I read a really amazing book that said my daughter was going through a phase where she was just getting very emotional and very reactive to very small things. And I was like, what is going on with her? And I read this book and it was a light bulb moment for me. And it was like, do not respond well in non joyful moments. They respond really well in joyful moments. And I think that that is so true even for us adults. So I had to kind of reconnect with myself and say, I need to tap into my joy, not only for her, but for me too. When I feel joyful, when I feel happier, she responds better and I feel better. So I think as a mom, you have to find what makes you feel joyful, what makes you feel happy, and make time for those things because your kids are going to respond to it better. Really, that's probably the biggest lesson that I've had this year is just finding joy.
That's so good. That is so good. Oh man. Well, thank you so much for this. Where can we follow along if we want to just learn from you or reach out with those business questions? Where's the best way to follow along with you?
So at Beeya Wellness on Instagram, Beeya Wellness is where we have all of our tips, our recipes. We share so much content. So if you are
Hmm.
navigating hormonal imbalances or you just want to take your health to the next level, you're looking for good recipes, you want to learn more about seed cycling or magnesium or any of the things that we were talking about, I highly recommend checking out our Instagram because that is just the hub where we've created a beautiful community. If you want to email me directly, you can email Kaya at beeyawellness.com, Kaya, and I will get back to you. I'm happy to talk anything nutrition, fertility, business, growing, all of that. Feel free to reach out.
Well, that's perfect. And yes, I can vouch for the recipes. The best brownies I've ever had in my life are these purple sweet potato brownies that you guys shared like probably 2 years ago. And it's just, they're the best. So, really fun and creative and healthy recipes and so much content and education. Kaya, thank you so much. I feel like really uplifted from this conversation. I know this is going to be such a blessing, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to chat.
Thank you.